What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Strange New Show. Keith and Mike watch Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Today, we are talking about the Serene Squall. Mike, how you doing? Are you serene today?
Yeah.
Or are you more of a squall?
Oh, actually, it's ebbing and flowing. It's been a day. As everyone knows, Chancellor Jen is returned home.
Yes.
She had to go back to work today, and so in her stead, Keith, here running the station at my house is, well, if Jen's Chancellor, Grand Negus Rita is here.
Oh my god, that legitimately made me laugh and feels oddly appropriate.
Yeah, like the Photoshop might not need to be Photoshopped.
I don't mean the physically. I just mean that you're definitely Quark to her Grand Negus,
100%,
1,000,000%.
So where she's holding down the fort in the other room, we had to get her eyeballs scrubbed today. They did a cataract surgery, Keith, which,
oof.
I mean, I guess in the future they won't need, but they need them now. So we did that. It was an early morning. We have an earlier morning tomorrow. So I'm struggling, but I'm here. The episode is watched. We've got great screenshots. We've got a lot to talk about.
We do indeed.
Hashtag Keith was right in his predictions about Nurse Chapel and Spock, and I threw a fit, and I
totally picked up the vibes, buddy.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I think it was more like I was. You know what I picked up on? I picked up on my own disappointment that she was crushing on Spock and not me. I think that's really the issue.
I guess the true question becomes: is T'Pring picking up the vibes, or is she not? It's interesting.
I don't know. Yeah. Well, we're going to get into it now. Of course, those of us who are steeped in the Trek lore already kind of know the answer to that. But yeah,
I guess you would, right from the original series.
The rest of us have seen the middle and end of Spock's life, whereas you're just seeing the very beginning.
Interesting.
So,
okay,
what's going to happen? Who knows? How are they going to address it? I don't know yet because I have only seen up to the Serene Squall. But before we talk about that episode, we have to talk a little bit about last week's episode with the viewer ratings. Now, of course, last week was Lift Us Where Suffering Cannot Reach.
Mm-hmm.
And we had some interesting comments. You can read them below on the YouTube video from last week. Including Jason Moe, who gave it a 79. Harry Pothead liked it at a 90. Now, you and I were not super hot on the episode.
That's true, I recall.
But we had a passionate defense of the episode from our very good friend, JD, who wrote a great deal. Definitely go and read it. But I wanted to sort of dive into this just a little bit because he makes a very interesting point about what the episode was about, because we were sort of searching for that. But JD says, but as far as this episode, it's not about how to save the kid. We all know that saving the kid is important. That's not the question. What is being put to us is how do we react and respond to it? We need to realize that we can't ignore the horrible things that our society causes, but not stop there and continue to try and change things for the better. Yes, of course, because we as Americans cause some really horrible shit.
Yep.
We ignore towns being poisoned and schools being shot in pipelines and trains destroying people's lives, police killing people for being the wrong color, on and on and on, of course. But we continue to look away and do nothing. To which I couldn't agree more, right? Obviously. But I think, and he gives it a 99, because of the value of pointing out that obligation that we all have and should have, and should be battling for. But there's a part of me that still sticks with the episode doesn't really do that part. The episode sort of asks the question or points out that the society is ignoring this horrible thing that is happening. But so what do we do about it part is kind of left off of the episode. Mm-hmm. So what I was looking for is an exploration. It's okay, now that we see that this is happening, what is our duty? What are we supposed to do about this? What is, we have the moral conflict. Now what? How does it align with the prime directive, and on and on and on? So while I agree with you 100% that calling our attention to the horrible things that we in our society, as humans, as Americans, as whatever, the stuff that we are ignoring or are aware of but not doing much to change. And I think we are all responsible for that in some ways. I wish that the episode had gotten into that more.
Yeah, and not to get we completely align on this opinion, so I won't belabor it, but I will say that this trek has a bit more responsibility than some other treks because to boldly go where we're going, you've got to push media further in some ways. It can't just retread, and I would say that whereas the OG and probably some of the first shows, it was enough to raise some questions and to shine a mirror up. And I think you're right in that, but we've done that. So now I think you've got the platform. I think it's time to start holding up the mirror and then offering some maybe potential resolutions, or at least host the debate a little more thoroughly. And I think that's what we were saying.
Yeah, no, I no, for sure. And what's interesting about Trek is that it is very future focused, right? It is. I mean, it's all about the future. It's all about whatever. But each of these shows exist within their own times, and so you're right. The what is enough and what is pushing the boundary is constantly changing. And we're watching the Trek from the 90s, right? And we're like, wow, this really didn't go very far on this. But in its time, that was going pretty far.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is a really interesting thing that's happening here. But Star Trek has always been nudging us forward. And so you see people uncomfortable with how far this show is nudging us forward. But I think, examine that discomfort, because maybe the whole point of this is for you to challenge that discomfort. All right. So, fascinating, great conversation, much more to say, and I'm sure JD will have a rebuttal to the rebuttal of the rebuttal. So let us talk now about this episode, the Serene Squall, which aired on June 16th, the year 2022. That would be tomorrow will be a year from that. The top song continued to be as it was, Mike.
It's not the same as it was. Oh, happy day. Oh, happy day.
Oh.
When Jesus washed. Call back to the other show.
Yeah. Guys, if you were like, wow, that wasn't horrible and annoying and I just threw my phone in the river, I want to hear more of that. Check out Keith and Mike watch Deep Space Nine right here also in the channel, which you'll see in your feeds if you subscribe.
It puts the phone in the river. It puts the phone in the river.
Please don't do that, both for your phone needs and for, more importantly, for environmental reasons. But so glad Buffalo Bill gave us a visit. For
Buffalo Bill? It was like a month. Oh. Did I ever tell you about when there was one of the spam bots started texting me to and it was like, hey, honey, how are you?
Yes.
And so I just went on this whole, and they kept writing me back, and I went on a whole narrative about how I was Hannibal Lecter, and you could call me Dr. Lecter, and they're like, how you doing tonight? And I was like, well, it depends on what's for dinner. And they said, what's for dinner? And I said, who's for dinner? And I went a whole big, but it kept going. They didn't ever catch on that I was just riffing. So Keith believes it was fully AI, but I don't know if I don't know.
Well, I'm always confused about those things, right? Because I like to play along and I like to, go on wild adventures like you do, but it never really gets to the point where they're making money off of it.
Yeah.
Right. When do they ask for your social security number?
I think it was my mom, or it might've been my mom's friend. Somebody finally did ask for money. But it was a different scam. It was the one where they say that you have past due taxes. But it was crazy because they kept going with it, and eventually it was they asked for iTunes gift cards.
Gift cards, yeah. They always go to gift cards.
And it's weird. Why would any person think that that's how that works? But
the federal government, well, but I guess, but that, it starts with money, right? Like we have but these like, oh, it's like this cute girl is on Instagram wants to talk about the cat or something like this, or like a random accidental like, hey, what's your name? Like, when does that turn? Is that a real person? Is it a bot? I'm so
it's confusing. Yeah, 100%.
It's confusing. All right, so that's not what we're here to talk about.
No,
but it does plague me. I'm always curious, and I've never actually continued it long enough to get there. Maybe the next time some cute bot messages me on Instagram and wants to talk about the cat, I'm just gonna keep talking until they ask for something.
But it's a bot because instead of you up, they text you booted.
Yeah.
I'll see myself out.
The top movie last year was Jurassic World Domination, which took in $59 million. I liked that one.
No.
The hard-hitting news from 20 years previous in the weekly world news headlines. Here it is. The first of the terrorist top 25 American targets revealed. Are you in Osama's crosshairs?
Maybe.
I mean, possibly. I don't know.
They've heard my voice modulator, so.
But yeah, well, you're in my crosshairs. But the best part of this is adoption agencies sells shaved apes as human babies.
That one I have to. You know what? Hold on.
I just got hats off.
That's good.
Yeah, that's a fun one. So, congratulations. There you go. All right. So, the Serene Squall was directed by Sidney Friedland, who this is their only trek thus far. But these contemporary shows, who knows?
Right.
Might be many more. And it is written by Bo DeMeo, who last worked on Memento Mori, and Sarah Tarkoff, who last wrote on Children of the Comet. And before I give just the tiniest bit of trivial trivia, it is time to thank our patrons who are financially supporting the show in exchange for that warm feeling in the heart of supporting our nonsense and bonus episodes of absolute nonsense that we do. Plus, we're only doing this show because the patrons requested it. Mike, who's patroning the patron?
Keith, I would like to thank from the bottom of my cold, dead heart, Brian, Kimball Beersock, Wyatt Eldridge, plosives are important, Kimball Beersock, Wyatt Eldridge, Casey Clark, Jason, Mo Problems, Bren Joshua, Andrew Hayes, Jorge Navoa, and the mysterious Worf's big old boot shivs. Don't turn your back or you're getting shivved by a boot shiv. And it's Worf's. Charles Babbage, Richard Coleman, CRM Productions, Nikolay Babbage. Yeah, Babbage's. Nikolay Ivanovich Lobachevsky, insert joke here, Delusions at Known, JD Makes, Colin Dagan, Chris Mitchell at CRM, Pat and Joshua Cronin. They're the ones who send us stuff in the good old United States Parcel Service. And we'd like to thank each and every one of them. And we'd like to welcome you to our live streams and also to our Patreon love at patreon.com/K&M.
That's right. We're gonna do a live patron only event
the
of
Negus
some
is
sort.
Talk, Keith.
Oh, the Negus is talking. Oh, great.
No.
I think
Tide Pods in there.
Mike's mom is my favorite character on the show. So you know how like the recurring characters on Deep Space Nine or any of the Star Trek shows, Mike's mom is definitely my favorite recurring character.
Mm-hmm. Sorry about that. We had to discuss.
Tide Pods, buddy.
Yeah,
you gotta know what. Just tell her not to eat them.
It's true.
They do look delicious. Don't get me wrong.
They have a delicious texture as well.
They do. Really good mouthfeel, but it's just for a second.
It's
just
almost sushi,
only for a second,
but not.
Okay. Well, what do you say we hit up some?
It's more like sushi. No, forget it. I'm cutting it out.
Sue shouldn't have made that joke. This is bad.
What am I doing now? Tell me what to do.
Trivial trivia. Yeah. We only have one little piece of it, so the theme song isn't necessary.
No, we gotta do it. I mean, pay the royalties for the bumpers. You might as well use them.
What do you mean? I don't get paid any royalties for that bumper.
Oh, well, that's your fault.
I wrote my own damn bumper.
You better talk to ASCAP.
I do need to dock the ASCAP. I wrote my own damn bumper. All right. So the character of Ensign Shankar is named after Naren Shankar, who was a story editor on The Next Generation and wrote stories of Voyager and Deep Space Nine. Love a little Easter egg there to the people who worked on the show in the glorious era of the 90s. All right, so our cast this week include Jesse James Keitel as Captain Angel, who we looked up uses she, her, or they, them pronouns. But because the character uses she, her pronouns, and she, her came first, we're going to use she, her for Jesse moving forward. And Gia Sandhu back as T'Pring, with Michael Hu as Remy and Sophia Walker as Fran. I'm excited to get into this episode. Mike, let's go to the screening room, shall we?
I won't give it away, but I am. All right, let's just roll.
Okay, so in our teaser, we arrive with T'Pring, who is working on the Vulcan criminal planet, where she is trying to rehabilitate them by purging them of the emotions that caused them to commit crimes. What an interesting set design they have here.
Mm-hmm.
Vulcan, it's hot, it's very sandy, lots of columns, they're sort of Romans.
This was the first time for me that. So it's like I'm gonna dig and then praise.
Okay.
This looked the least like an actual place we were, and the most like a composite. But at the same time, it harkens so back to Deep Space Nine and their matte painting composite things. It feels so like that I could almost speculate that it's a nod.
Hit like a twinge of nostalgia. Well, I think the matte paintings and the scale models, it is its own aesthetic in some ways. And because if you remember, not the Indiana Jones movie that's coming out in a couple of weeks, but the Crystal Skull, they had a couple of times where they intentionally made it obvious that it was a matte painting or a model or something like that. And it really pulled me out for a second, but then I realized it's matching the visual tone of the previous movies. And so you're right. This doesn't look particularly good in terms of contemporary technology, but as a throwback to give you that that delicious 90s smell, I kind of feel it. I'm kind of there for it. So she's walking around helping these criminals, but what she's really interested in doing is exploring Spock's human side, and that is a euphemism. She's been reading Henry Miller, Erica Jong, and Maggie Nelson to try to understand getting it on with the humans. Spock does not handle this smoothly, but as he says, it's actually tremendously thoughtful of her.
Yeah.
And I was like, this made me like T'Pring more.
It's almost like, hypothetically, you're married to some guy, right? And he's like, hey, honey, I'm going to devote hundreds of hours to talking about Star Trek. Do you like Star Trek? And she's like, no. But then, as you get deeper into it, she starts watching Star Trek with you.
Yeah, that's right. And you see a change there, because when we first met T'Pring, the first couple of episodes, she was pretty salty about the whole humanness of it all.
She was more of like a T'Prick.
She was a bit of a T'Prick about the human thing, but now, here she is, T'Pringing a surprise on him. Because she's a.
Hold on.
What's happening now?
It's just handed to me. What's happening right now? Stay over there. Oh, good God, help me.
What's happening?
I can't tell you what's happening. to protect the innocent. Here you go. You just need one. All right, have a good time.
Just eat one until make sure you Just eat one first, and then if you're still hungry, you can have another one.
Keith. Oh, I know you're an atheist, but if you could just say a prayer, say a prayer for.
Oh my God. Loyal viewers, I hope that this is an enjoyable experience, an enjoyable look into our messy lives. If you're here for the trek alone, I'm so sorry.
Not since the oopsie finale of the Out of Practice podcast, as Mike cried on the podcast.
Anyway, later, Spock is very distracted with all of this.
I have to, just to give one part of the visual to everyone, because it is in theme with the episode. So, like, much like the space pirates, my mom just had cataract surgery today, so all that's happening right here. She's got this fucking thing, and so she looks like a pirate. Is that my first F-bomb of the episode?
I think so.
Okay, well,
I'm sure I've dropped one or two.
Yeah.
I always mark it explicit just in case.
yeah. Okay, we're here. We're ready. We're Star Trek.
It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. Just think about poor Spock, whose horny girlfriend is trying to Skype sex him from
I know what a tough
interplanetary
spot
places.
to be in, where just all these hot people want to bang you.
I know, right? Like Spock, he has like 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 hot ladies trying to bang him this week. Not fair. All right, so where was I? So he's super distracted by all this, and Spock asks for Chapel's advice. She's more eager to explore his humanity than he is, and it makes him nervous. Chapel continues to be charming and fun while she pretends that she's not trapped in the friend zone. We head to dinner.
But she's cool with it right now. I mean, she's not cool with it, but she's able to put on a facade. That's the important
Yes,
note.
she's able to keep up the my heart isn't breaking because I'm being beaten to death.
It
in
seemed
friend
much
zone.
more cutesy before, right? Like, it was so cutesy that it was subtle. Mike didn't even really sniff in it because he thought he wanted her to be like Ortega's girlfriend, but
Well, there's still time.
I didn't say there's not
I mean,
time,
she's-
but I thought that was the
She's gonna
main.
have to give up on the Spock of it all,
Maybe not. I don't know.
and because we need we need to somehow resolve this human centipede of friend zone.
Yeah, you're right. And plus,
not-
doesn't she have to? I know that because she jumps over to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I mean, she spins off into that. Nurse Chapel, right?
No, you're thinking Kai Wynn.
Nurse Ratchet, right? Yeah,
Nurse
my bad.
Ratchet.
Yeah.
Oh, but all right, but there is a Star Trek. Some of it makes sense because it is a nurse, right? And then Nurse Ratchet later becomes Kai Wynn,
right.
going back into Star Trek. All right, it's
I'll allow it.
we went to warp a couple of times, crossing that journey to that joke. But I'm with you.
Mhm.
So, all right. So we head to dinner where a lady named Aspen is telling us about some colonists who have lost power way out in the edges of Federation space in the Wild West with a cool face tattoo. Pike agrees to help and gets called a Boy Scout by Aspen. Mike?
I was just going to say, the whole time I kept thinking Aspen was the actress from Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Oh, sure.
She was giving me that vibe. Maybe it's because she had a dragon tattoo on her face.
It's possible. She also
Was that
looks like
Ruby Mara or something like that?
Rooney Mara.
Rooney Mara, yeah. She was giving
She
me
does
Mara
look
vibes.
a little bit like
yeah.
Rooney Mara, and there's another actress who's a friend of ours who you're not going to know who she is. I actually thought it was Renata for a little bit. It's not.
It's Renata.
There it is. There it is. Oh, guys, we are nailing this.
Mm-hmm.
So
Spock, apparently.
Oof. Spock thought about it. I mean, to be fair, I think we all did.
Yeah.
All right,
It's
so-
only logical.
It is only logical. So, also pointed out by our good friend patron Jason Moe that the Jesse James Keitel, the actress, is a trans actress, and I had no idea.
I didn't either.
I
But
had absolutely no idea. And he points out it's going to thematically there are some elements here between the Spock human part and perhaps some correlation there with the trans experience. Anyway, I thought it was I had no idea, and I thought it was really cool
mm-hmm.
to have a prominent trans actor on the show
Yeah, representation matters. And you and I talked about this in a previous, I don't know what show we were on, but sometimes the best representation is the one you don't even clock, right? Because it's ubiquity.
I'm into the character. I'm into the performance.
It's pretty clear that this character will return.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it has to, right? I mean, to set the whole thing up.
Yeah, basically, was chewing, like, flossing their teeth with scenery as they spaceshipped off. Yeah.
And she's super fun. I mean, this character is so much fun.
And a mind screw, which is always the best.
Yeah, and it was a twist that I didn't see coming.
No. I almost feel silly for not seeing it, because it's almost blatant.
It seems pretty straightforward, but anyway, the point is, happy Pride, everybody. And we stand wholeheartedly, both feet in, supporting our friends in the community. All right. So, where was I? So, number 1 warns them of a pirate ship called the Serene Squall that's been making trouble everywhere. And Aspen is a humanitarian worker who used to be a counselor, rocking a cool face tat, as I mentioned. They come across a bunch of debris, and 2 of the colonist ships are blown up, and the 3rd is missing. They assume that the colonists have been abducted across the border into non-Federation space as slaves. So they head in for the rescue. So I guess non-Federation space is a dark place.
Yeah, I was saying on the watch along, you can check out with me at patreon.com/K&M, that there's no way to jump the stakes from 0 to warp than slavery.
Well, yes. Yeah, exactly. So in Act 1, Spock goes to meet Aspen in her quarters. She's been working out to loud club music, which I thought was fun. Mm-hmm. They take a turbo lift chatting about anxiety. And she mentions that she knows a fair amount of Vulcans, including knowing about the Kolinar. Mike, do you remember what the Kolinar is?
Like you meditate, it's like Rumspringa during Vulcan meditation.
It's the opposite of Rumspringer, but yes, it is the final stage in the Vulcan deleting their emotions.
Okay,
so like
cool.
it is when we have reached absolute logic.
Mm-hmm.
And so when she finds out that Spock hasn't done it yet, because he still has.
How do you know when you've gotten there?
It's a spiritual meditation sort of a deal.
Okay.
And we see it in one of the movies.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
He actually the motion picture, I think, is where we see him going through that final process, and whether he decides to do it or not, who knows?
No way.
I don't know. We'll find out.
But you can't give up all your human.
Well, that's kind of the thing. She doesn't know why somebody would do that, i.e. the Kolinar, and she's kind of a little flirty. They have received a distress signal, and both Spock and Aspen say, "Be careful, it's probably a trap." And, unsurprisingly, it's a trap. The ship is caught in a laser net, which envelops the ship. It takes a bit, but eventually Aspen comes up with a plan to zap the main source, i.e. the asteroid that is powering it. Spock has to make a gut call on which one it is. He does not enjoy this, but luckily he's right. This was the first time, because I actually watched this episode twice. First as a fan on the big screen, and then again to note it. And this moment was a wormhole to me until the end, and then I understood it. Mm-hmm. But I was like, what? But now I get why it was there. They pass through more asteroids, but we see them pursued by a little insect-looking ship. Cool design with like the little insect legs hooking itself to the asteroid. Aspen goes to Spock's quarters wearing an incredibly tight and revealing black suit. In more than 25 years of therapy, none of my therapists have worn this outfit before. Alas.
No. Probably for the best. I find it to be distracting.
It is distracting. Yes, I'm Spock. You're asking me a question.
Okay. Keith, I'd like to talk today about your emotions.
Yeah, because feelings. Yeah.
By the time I finish stammering, she'll be like, okay, and that's all of our time for today.
And that's time.
Yeah.
And that's time. Yes, but it as a therapist, it's pretty unprofessional. I have friends who are therapists, and we've actually talked about how it is very important as a therapist to not be distracting in how you dress, because of all sorts of different.
It's day one. They say if you want to make their emotions dance, make sure you're rocking sweatpants. First page of the book. Because you don't want to reveal too much.
You don't want to show your bods, so use Tide Pods. Get those sweatpants. They make sure they're clean. Gross. This is a terrible episode.
Did you also have too much cheese for lunch? Tide Pods.
What? Is there a second part of this joke?
No, just the first part, but I don't want to tell you the second part.
It's just like random things, like, kids, take your vitamins. Tide Pods! Okay. This is what's happening today.
I told you, man. I said it was gonna be pulling teeth, and here I am.
Oof. Well, you want to know what doesn't knock your teeth out?
Tide Pods!
Because they're squishy. Well, you'll never chip a tooth.
You got something squishy coming out your tushy?
You probably ate a Tide
Pods.
You're gonna die, but you'll die clean. Okay. Where are we?
Hot therapist.
So hot therapist has come in to check on Spock because she could tell he did not enjoy making a gut decision. She pokes at his constantly feeling either Vulcan or human, but she advises him not to limit himself to one box or the other. It's good advice. She may actually have been a therapist, and she reinforces that she spent time with Vulcans. And here I think is where the thematic part about her using they them pronouns, right? Which I again did not pick up on at all, but makes perfect sense.
So
right?
you know, it's funny.
You don't have to be male or female. You can embrace both at the same time.
Actually, interesting. Not to get too into the weeds with this, because I actually have a salient point to make. But I was just reading an article yesterday. We met a colleague who used mixed pronouns, right? So they were she, her, they, them. It was both, right? And so
right. Well, as
exactly. It was exactly this.
As Jesse does. Yeah.
It's completely unrelated, which is kind of awesome in its own representation. That it's not one-off cases. There's many people who have this experience, and we just are limited in the amount of them we know, and we should change that. Not my point. Point being, so I was researching a little bit about what's protocol. Which do you use when, and really comes down to
fair question,
a dialogue, because it's for them to tell you really and you can't be afraid to ask, and they'll let you know if it's inappropriate to, you just have to we have to have a little less fear and a little more courage. I think that's the long and short of it.
For sure. Have an open mind and be curious, and when you get the information, listen and adjust.
Yeah.
But you don't have to. It's not a quiz.
Right. It's not a pop quiz.
It is about embracing whatever they tell you.
Then that understanding, speaking for myself, can and will and is continuing to evolve and change on a daily to second basis, because I just don't have a large enough swath of experience. Anyway.
Well, yeah, because being an ally is not a destination you reach. It is a process you were on. It is a journey you were on.
I think it's also an acceptance of you're gonna be wrong a lot. That's okay.
Yeah. It's an agreement to continue taking in new information and to continue to change the way you think based on that new information.
Anywho, that aside,
yes,
it's a very important conversation. It's just not what we're talking about currently. I don't want to ever seem like I'm just pushing it aside. That's what I'm getting at. But anyway, the point I wanted to say is that much like you, Keith, I had a wormhole that came at the end of the episode that now on rediscussion is being solved. I think probably similar to you. So none of this ends up being a brain screw for him. Like, she's not doing it to twist his brain. I think she is genuinely curious. I think she is offering some advice, and I think, and we clearly learn she does have experience with Vulcans. So I think it's all from an actual place of honesty. There is a duplicity involved, but I don't think she's trying to screw with him.
Well, but I guess we've all seen the episode, right? Like, there's no spoilers. Like, her husband is his half brother.
Right.
So she doesn't have just an interest and agenda with Vulcans in general. He's family. He doesn't know it, but she does.
I guess the question for me, and I'm sure we'll get to it because they must, is what's the actual game afoot here?
Well, because you haven't seen Star Trek V, right? That Sybok is his brother is one of the sort of emotional separatists on Vulcan. So there is a subset of the society that is rejecting the idea of burying your emotions and absolute logic, that emotions are important, you want to have them. And so he ends up sort of being kind of like a cult leader in that world. And so she is poking around at Spock, either to find out, like, might he be an ally in this world? She's, obviously it's her husband, so she probably believes in the same sort of value of emotion, poking at the logic. And so I think she's poking at that from a standpoint of, I don't agree with the way Vulcans handle this, but also, like, I have an agenda with what's going on with you personally, because you're family.
She is trying to get him out of prison.
Her husband, yes, for sure.
But she doesn't need Spock to do that.
No. Well, she knows that T'Pring is in a position to get her husband
to
out,
leverage, right?
And knows that I think it's how much coincidence it is. I guess, like, of all the people you could try to figure out how to extort, you already have a connection with Spock. Why not try that? And T'Pring seems to be, like, in charge of the prison planet, or at least pretty high up. Anyway, so Ortegas flies the Enterprise manually through the asteroids and comes across a large ship floating in front of them. It looks like it's the third colonial ship, and Aspen suggests that it might have been taken over by the Squall boarding party, and then the colonists are there being held hostage. So Pike puts on his cool away mission armor, and they beam over to the ship. I was a little curious why he got armor and the other people who beamed over didn't.
Priorities, baby.
Oh, wait, they didn't. They got abducted from the Enterprise, I bet.
Yes.
All right, anyway.
Yeah, when they came aboard.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. It looks like a giant warehouse cargo ship, and they find a bunch of empty cages or cells, but no colonists. They try to beam out, but the transporters are blocked. It's another trap. And back on the Enterprise, Chapel runs across a boarding party of pirates on the Enterprise.
So they just got trapped, and then open-eyed walk into a second trap.
Yes.
They're both
100%.
just like, they just tried to trap us. What if this is going to be a trap? I don't know.
Well, but I think part of that is Angel Aspen, right?
Yeah.
Because if you have somebody there, it's like, oh, that's the colonist ship.
Also,
you don't
in the
think
future,
it's necessarily,
if you want to be a billionaire in the future, be the person who invents the scanner that can tell you that they're going to jam your signals when you reach the planet. Because we always, like, our first line of defense is, hey, beam me out. We got to be able to see that you have the tech that can block my beaming.
Well, but
it happens so much.
Right. Well, but everybody has the tech because you can't beam through shields. So every time we say
got
shields
on,
up,
and they're like,
right. So we, and in order, and what happened with the trap here, the switch here, is that we had to lower our shields in order to beam over, and while our shields were down, they beamed over in the opposite direction.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Science officer.
Aha! Here I am. I'm your nerd of choice. Thank you for choosing me to be your nerd today. So Chapel runs across the boarding party, and she pieces out into a Jeffries tube. First time we see a Jeffries tube on Strange New Worlds. Then, on the other ship, a bunch more pirates take the away team hostage, and they drop down with ropes. Utterly unnecessary. They could have just come from anywhere, but the ropes are cool to look at. So they get taken hostage.
Oh, they get that sweet hazard pay, so.
That's true. Yeah, they've got paid more. On the Enterprise, there's a firefight on the bridge. Number 1 locks out the command codes. This is important for the ship. And Spock fights to protect his new therapist girlfriend. They escape through the turbo lift, but not before she is shot. Meanwhile, Pike meets a big Orion dude who says, "Welcome to the Serene Squall." He looks something like a giant green Ewok.
Keith, you know what a giant green space Ewok's pirate's favorite letter is?
I'm assuming it's going to be, wait for it, R.
Nice. Yeah. Nailed it.
I was on it. So in Act 2, Spock and Aspen sneak through the quarters trying to get to sickbay. And they also go through the
Keith,
Jeffries
do you know what
tube.
a space pirate's, or do you know what this guy's favorite key on the keyboard is? That'd be the space bar. Just came up with that one. I was kind of proud of it, to be honest. Because, it's like space, and then also get R in there. Kind of like a double up.
If everybody would like to fast 10 forward and get to your space bar, I'd understand completely.
Man.
So on the Squall, Pike is being beaten and questioned about the ship's codes to get through the lockout, because they password protected the ship. Pike charmingly resists before getting a chance to shit on the Orion leader's food. He offers to cook them something good in exchange for feeding the prisoners, because apparently they're very hungry 15 minutes into captivity.
Like, very hungry.
Like, I have to save them. Hold on, I have to fix the light. I have to save them. They haven't eaten in nearly 19 minutes.
I guess seriously, I guess what they're going with is the fastest, the old, what's the idiom? The fastest way to a man is through his stomach. So he's like, I guess the fastest way out of being a prisoner is to cook them food.
I mean, that's works for a giant green Ewok.
And they also, to be fair, they did plant this seed back in the pilot when he's doing cookie time for everybody, so.
He's cooking food. Yeah, well, fair enough. So the second in command lady talks the Orion, in the Ewok is an Orion, into letting Pike cook. Odd beat. On the Enterprise, Chapel sneaks around and tries to send a distress signal.
Time
but
out.
everything
Let's
is
revisit
blocked.
that, though, because just so that Mike was in a place last night, too, so I'm not sure I caught all the beats. I think the reason she's able to, I think the point here is Pike is surprised that she is able to have so much sway over the Ewok, but it turns out that's because he's not the captain, because Captain is up on the ship pretending to not be captain.
Right. I don't think he's surprised that he's hatching the scheme, right?
Yeah, but he says to Guy, he's like, I can't believe you let these people talk to you that way.
Oh, yes, but I still think he thinks he's the captain at that point. Like,
He does.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm trying to justify it to myself. His surprise is earnest, and that's because the reason that they talk to them is because he's not the captain. He's just some schmo.
Okay.
I mean, it's not locked. It's not airtight, but it's something.
It's something. So Chapel's sneaking around trying to send the distress signal, and she's caught by 2 pirates and manages to incapacitate them both with a hypo spray. Both because she's awesome, and they definitely suck at pirating.
And with the space pirate, don't forget the pirate patch.
Oh my god!
Hey guys, if you notice a cut in the episode, it's because I had to tell Keith this story, and I think he probably wishes I didn't tell him.
I think I just.
Ooh.
Whew, I gotta. Oh.
Ooh.
The 4K footage makes it clear how hard it is to keep their shiny white floors clean and scuff-free. I feel like at this point, they would have implemented boat shoe protocol.
Something, man. But this is
Yeah,
the closest
'cause,
we've
like-
ever gotten. It's the closest shot we ever had.
Because like on our yacht, you can't just go there with black sneakers. It's never gonna happen.
Sneakers. Keith makes you take your shoes off in the tender coming over.
In the Tinder?
The tender boat. So you sometimes, like if you're going to an island or something, and you can't dock. They put you in a second little dinghy boat, a tender they call it, and they tender you over.
Yeah. Well, there you go. But I mean, it's Jillian made. We have a shoes off household now.
Yep.
So there it is. So on the pirate ship, Pike makes the pirates chilly, and he works on the Ewok. He tries to tell him to be afraid of his crew. The captain mentions his plan to sell the ship and crew to the Klingons. Naturally, this scares the second in command, Lady. We're going to get to a lie that Pike tells later from that scene. So in sickbay, Aspen gives some of her backstory. She used to be in Starfleet, but her husband, a Vulcan, was killed by pirates on the Serene Squall. She left Starfleet when this happened and blames her husband's Vulcanness for him dying, because instead he chose to fight rather than run, and as a result was killed. And the idea is if he were more emotional and more afraid of death, he wouldn't have died. Interesting. So Pike is thrown back in the cage with the rest of the crew. And Pike says, and lies, and says, I've convinced him to sell us to the Klingons. Which on second viewing, because this bumped me, and then I checked it, he did not. He tells the crew, I told this guy to sell us to the Klingons. Whereas what actually happened is like, what are you going to do? He's like, I'm going to sell you to the Klingons. Which is weird. I don't know if that is a continuity error, an error in the writing, or whether or not Pike is supposed to be... Like, obviously he leaned in and like, oh yes, you should do that for the purpose of turning his crew against him. But he did not incept that idea into the captain. That's weird. But the crew, of course, won't be happy about that, and his plan is to try and start a mutiny on the ship. And they're all like jokey about this. Which is odd given the tone of what's happening. Anyway, Spock and Aspen get to engineering and find Chapel there still trying to send a distress signal. Spock, of course, is able to unlock the computer and shuts off the rest of the ship from the pirates.
I will say, upon multiple viewing now, this is my favorite set. This and the bridge are my favorite set.
It's pretty cool, and they're able to really have a cool perspective thing. I don't know if that's a CG wall they're working with or whether they built an actual.
Although it's very consistent every time we see it, but I guess if it's just like an OBS backdrop, you just drop it in and it's so hard.
Yeah, because whether it's 2D or 3D, I meant it's the engineering. I bet they built at least some of it.
Yeah.
Maybe the first couple, and then it fades. They mirror it like an Aliens. Anyway, they got a good plan, but then it all reverses. They're locked out again, and Aspen is there holding phasers. She's not Aspen, she's Captain Angel, the captain of the Serene Squall.
It was a good flip. It was a good flip.
Yeah, totally. And it made a lot of other things make more sense.
And they did. I like when they do it early enough that and you still know you have a good chunk of episode for her to play that character too. So it was cool. To
see how it's going to play out.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't even know what her plan is yet. So in Act 3, they all arrive on the bridge and Spock is pissed. Captain Angel taunts him. Apparently, she replaced the real Dr. Aspen and dumped them on an uninhabited planet. Dr. Aspen clearly uses they-them pronouns.
Wait, time out. I got this all wrong. Captain Aspen is not captain of the Serene Squall.
Not
Captain Angel.
No. Captain Angel is captain of the Serene Squall. She replaced...
Her first thing she did from the... She left the Squall, went to the other ship, the therapist ship, dispatched...
She abducted the therapist, right.
Okay, I was right.
And then replaced the therapist.
Gotcha.
But it was interesting here that they made it very clear that Dr. Aspen uses they, them, before I had any idea that Jesse James Keitel was trans or uses they them themselves. I had no idea.
I didn't even put together that they were using they them pronouns.
But it was interesting. Yeah, well, second time viewing, I clocked it. Okay, so also we find out that the colonists were all imaginary to begin with.
So it was a third trap. There were 3 traps.
There's a whole bunch of different traps going on. A pretty complicated plan. So Angel sits on the chair and is delighted to see that the phasers work, and she has complete control over the ship. Spock naturally asks, "What do you want?" And she says, "I just want you." We head to the penal colony, where T'Pring gets a call from the Enterprise. It's Angel. She wants to trade Spock for a prisoner, Zavarius, her husband, who apparently now is not dead. She says, "Meet me on the edge of Federation space and come alone, or I'll kill everybody. I'll murder everybody." So Spock says T'Pring is not going to be swayed by emotions because she's Vulcan. And Angel laughs and points out that she's been playing on his emotions all day long. And she kind of makes a good point. She is. Chapel asks, "Are you doing all this for love?" And in a very, human moment, and I thought was very interesting, Angel replies that love is the only thing that makes the cold loneliness of space bearable. And that is why T'Pring is going to come and rescue Spock. And I thought it was a great performance from Jessie there to show just the tiniest hint of vulnerability as she says that, love is the only thing that makes space bearable, because we now know that that's true. That is actually true, the true motivating thing for this character. Loved it. Really cool. So on the pirate ship, they keep complaining about the food, trying to drive a wedge between the Ewok and the crew. They've really, really hit the food theme hard. Were the writers just really hungry while they were writing this?
Because it's like.
But was this because they ordered from the bad pizza place in the writing room and tried to start a mutiny?
I think it's more of a. You think of Mutiny on the Bounty, you think of a bunch of. What was the other one? That's the one that keeps coming to mind, and I think even in Moby Dick a bit, they often talk about the conditions, and it really boils down to the food. The food is crappy, and so they want more bananas from the islands, Keith.
Sure. I mean, I get it. They just hit it really hard, and it apparently is enough to.
Not only is it enough, but it's all. It is literally his only tactic, his only plan from the start of being captive, and he's never even worried. We'll talk about that later. There's no stakes here. There's never any concern that something might come of any of them. That's how the tone they play it so aloofly, because he's very confident in his cooking. I guess it is a little goofy.
I mean, they do have the Klingon thing as well, but it feels like a hijinks in a real life stake thing.
Yeah, I think that the only thing that salvages that a little bit, we'll talk about it, I guess, is the pirate thing. I think they're playing a very specific pirate vibe. Like the crew of the pirate ship is all,
but
just
it's like Disney pirates. It feels very
Caribbean.
Tonally inconsistent. It's Pirates of the Caribbean in a different episode. Anyway, we'll talk about that.
It's Space Pirates of the Caribbean. Is 100%
Space Pirates of the Caribbean. Yeah. So anyway, they offer to help the second in command lady take over the ship. She is non-committal. So T'Pring shows up at the meeting site pretty quickly, and Spock has figured out who the prisoner is. Doesn't say who it is, but it's figured out who it is, and tells T'Pring, "You can't make this exchange." Angel stuns Spock and says, "You got 10 minutes," which feels like an arbitrary beat because you got to get through a commercial break. So Act 4, T'Pring is about to agree, but Spock tells Chapel, "I got a plan. Sorry about this." He announces that he's having an affair with Chapel, and she plays along and they says, we're in love. Angel says it's a ruse. Then Spock and Chapel make out hardcore.
And so everybody's okay.
We can hear the violins playing in Chapel's head. And perhaps Spock too? I don't know. T'Pring says, all right, fine, we're breaking up, yo. And they do a breakup ceremony, and T'Pring pieces out. Angel is furious. She tells Adam Duritz's stunt double to destroy T'Pring's ship. Then, the Serene Squall shows up and fires on them. Apparently, Pike has taken over and is in charge of the pirate ship. He's got a literal old-timey pirate ship wheel. It's so silly.
It was giving me kind of Guardians of the Galaxy vibes.
It is Guardians of the Galaxy. But like, what does this do on a spaceship?
Come on, man. If I said, hey, Keith, write Space Pirates, you're putting a lot of this crap in there, too.
If it's a comedy.
Well, that's we'll have to get to. Why can't this be the comedic B-plot?
Because, like, he's full on, like, Dwight on the ship.
I don't have as big a problem as you about it.
I mean...
All of a sudden, you're anti-Hoke?
Anti-Hope?
Hoke.
Hoke? No, I mean, it's just tonally inconsistent with the rest of the episode. Like, if there were, like, a caper fun...
Look, you can write... I'm okay with comedy, but don't you write me a goofy pirate.
It wasn't quite as... You know what it is? It wasn't as funny to me as I think they thought it was.
Okay, that's a fair criticism, because I do think they think it's hysterical.
I think they thought it was absolutely knee-slapping hysterical, and I thought, like, it's close, but not quite there. Anyway, they've remotely shut down the Enterprise with the remote codes.
Also, I don't think the Pike character does subtle funny. I think when you put him in the comedic subplot, it's gonna be
slapsticky. It's almost like it's a little too much. Like, Anson's really funny, but I think he needs to be pulled back 15% from this performance today.
Oh, well, I mean, the writing doesn't help, but...
No, that's what I'm saying. The whole, like, if they pulled back the goofy literally 10-15%, I think I'd be on board.
Okay.
Just went just a little over-seasoned. All right, so... Anyway, Spock tells Angel to surrender. She tells him that their husband talked about you a lot. She says, don't choose to be Vulcan or human. Be who you are. See you later. Then she uses her fancy necklace to beam out onto the little bug ship and pieces out.
Such a good bad guy exit.
Oh, it's always great. The surprise beam out is fun. Didn't we do this once on the show already, though?
Yeah, the Dominion.
Oh, well, I mean, not other show, but on
I don't think so. I don't think we did.
World.
I don't think like this.
All right, the timelines can be confused. Anyway, all is well. The Federation took the Serene Squall into custody, but Angel is still missing. Pike does a stupid pirate voice on the bridge.
Yeah, now. It's a little on the nose.
Yeah, it was so close.
It's no space bar, but
it's
up there.
It's verging on it.
Adjacent.
It's verging on it.
It's space bar adjacent.
Space bar adjacent. It's the alt. It's at least the alt. So T'Pring goes to Spock's quarters.
Oh, there it is. Keep that.
There
You got to use that in the thumbnail.
Oh, without question.
Yeah.
Well, that's 100% going to be used.
Wait, should we all do it?
All right.
For the screenshot?
All right, here we go. Great.
I don't know. Okay. God bless finding that. Okay. All right.
Okay. T'Pring goes to Spock's quarters. She understood the ruse and appreciated the advantage his human side had for pretending to want to make out with Chapel. They decide to get down to Pound Town at warp speed. Later, I've never seen... That is 100% not true. I was about to say I've never seen hornier Vulcans, but then I remember Enterprise.
Yeah.
So later, Spock goes to talk to Chapel about what happened. She's clearly heartbroken, but tries to cover it, but this time badly. She doesn't want to talk about it. Come on, Chapel, leave the friend zone and go date Ortegas already. She does ask him what he meant when he said, I knew who the prisoner really was. Here's the big twist. He says Zavarius is a fake name. It's really the leader of the criminal Let's Feel Emotions sect of the Vulcans, and his half-brother, Star Trek V's Sybok. Oh, shiz.
So then this beat... T'Pring goes and sees him?
Yeah, so T'Pring knows who he really is, I think. And it's probably they use a code name for him because they don't want people knowing that they have Sybok. Because he's
Does
like a
she
big
know
bad.
it's Spock's brother?
Yes, I would assume so, or his half brother.
Does that reflect poorly on Spock?
I don't know. I don't think so.
If feeling feelings shames your family, I think we learned about that a week or two ago.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess maybe it does.
Yeah,
Maybe it does. And I mean, yeah, Spock. This was the first surprise sibling that Spock had. Michael Burnham being the second surprise sibling that Spock had.
Right.
Although I think the retcon about why we didn't ever talk about her later actually makes pretty good sense.
failed presidential.
They did it. Yes,
Aspirations.
she did not. Or it was the witchy. It was the witchiness. Michelle Bachmann joke for those of you playing at home. I thought it was a pretty good retcon. Anyway, so I don't know where we're gonna go with the whole Sybok of it all, but it's fascinating that they would resurrect this character, considering Star Trek V and that character and that movie are considered one of the worst moments in Star Trek history. And so are they gonna retcon and fix it? I'm so curious. And maybe Mike and I have to watch Star Trek V
On a live stream for the patrons?
on a live stream for the patrons, possibly. So perhaps. All right, Mike, we have somewhere to go,
Keith,
and we're
fists
gonna need
up.
our theme song.
It's time to go to the punchies.
That was great.
I thought maybe I had preloaded a punch sound effect, but I don't think I did it. I planned on it.
No sound happened whatsoever. It's like no sound, sort of like surprise, no pants.
Yeah, I wouldn't have anything to know about that. Keith, let's talk about our wormholes in the plot.
Oh, yes, let's.
Well, we lost the plot of this one a long time ago. It's been nothing but wormholes since minute 6. Yeah, I guess I the motivation of Captain Squall didn't quite make a lot of sense at first, but now on second talk, like I wasn't understanding what she was trying to manipulate Spock to do. Angel, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I still understand why she needed him. But outside of the manipulation of T'Pring, was that the long and short of it, or she just was trying to get him? She's trying to call him over to the dark side.
I think it is primarily I want my husband back, right? Mm-hmm. That's like number one. But maybe if she can seduce him into the dark side, that's not necessarily a bad outcome as well. And at the very least, she's very curious about Spock and what his deal is, and if Sybok is trying to overthrow Vulcan society, Spock being a very prominent and famous and powerful Vulcan, an influential Vulcan, like if she's able to turn him, that would be very helpful to the cause.
I think the other wormhole would be sort of just the motivations and the whole, really any sort of detail on the space pirate outfit. Who they are, what did they want? Do they have any motivation? Or are they just a bunch of like space losers that are just following Captain Angel? And if so, why would someone so competent have a crew of such morons? But they clearly didn't think that hard about it, so I don't think we should take the time to think that hard about it. So I think we can chalk it up to what you said, goofy space pirate, and we can decide in ratings whether we think that's good or bad.
Yeah. No, I mean, nothing that happens on the pirate ship makes a heck of a lot of sense, and I think because it's Pirates of the Caribbean pirates, that it just
Clearly,
they thought
there's
it
some
was more fun and more clever.
There is someone
than they
with some
thought it would.
shrewd tactical planning because Captain Sergeant Slaughter is already on the bridge the whole time. She's putting forth the ruse.
Like Angel is brilliant.
But because someone has to lay that trap, then they have to capture them, and they have to do the whole. So I guess we were to assume that Angel is in charge of all of that, the tactical maneuvering, the implementation of the plan. She was doing it all subversively whilst on the ship. Okay.
Yes. I think she planned that whole thing out well in advance. It's just that why does she have a crew of complete dum-dums? And also, like you said, like we're led to believe at the beginning that they're super dangerous. Mm-hmm. We reinforce like, oh, if you've been caught by them, you'd be dead, and like they're gonna enslave you. They're actually taking people to enslave them, and so on and so forth. So like they're like supposed to be scary, and then we find them.
So then therein lies I guess
theme park.
the strategic wormhole for me, the biggest one. If that's all true, which there's no reason to believe it's not true, there is no reason at all for Captain Planet not to just murder everyone she's captured or just keep them captured. They don't need anything from Pike and the crew. They've already got what they want. There's no reason to even allow him to begin to subvert her.
Well, no, the thing that they need are they started with needing the command codes until Spock put them in, which gave access to Angel.
So I guess they needed to keep Pike alive in the event that they needed to interrogate it out of him. Okay.
Right. That's why they needed them to begin with. After that, it didn't matter. But I also don't think that we're to believe that Angel is hard evil enough.
Yeah.
Like I don't think her goal is to kill anybody that doesn't. Like I don't think she's full evil. I think she's willing to take extreme measures to get what she wants. I don't think she wants to wipe out 1 million people.
Oh yeah, she is selling people into slavery.
But we don't know that actually.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like she's using that
as a
motivation to get the Enterprise into this, because she had to talk the Enterprise into going out of Federation space so they could trap them. So I think that was something she needed to motivate our heroes. So we don't know if it's actually true. For me, the first wormhole I had was how easily they got out of the space net. But now knowing that she set that net,
it wasn't really a trap at all.
It wasn't a trap at all. She set that net to build trust because she gave them the solution. She offered, how do you get out of it? And, Spock's judgment call, I wonder if
it was manipulated, like they both were okay.
I bet they both were okay.
He couldn't fail in that moment.
He couldn't fail. It didn't matter because she had her little button to turn it off, probably on her necklace or something.
Well, what was the point then? What does she elicit from him other than she was able to psychoanalyze him a little bit?
She's trying to turn him to the dark side, to the emotional side. And so I don't know if she'd planned that ahead of time or whether or not that was just a happenstance and she took advantage of it. I don't know. But yeah, I mean the main wormhole for me is the whole space pirate of it all. We've talked about it. Whatever. Let's talk about our best moment, Mike.
Well, I thought she was excellent. They were excellent. I just thought
fantastic.
What a good bad guy, and like you said, bad in the capital B, in the motivations. It's much more Thanos. She's got solid motivations.
Well, but those are the best bad guys. The bad guys 100%. Who think they're justified in what they're doing,
and maybe
in
some way, and so I thought that was cool. I also, I think it's got to be that. I wish I could. Let me come up with a specific scene. Then I think the scene. The first time they get to be bad on the bridge, the back and forth, the whole just villain part, the quote unquote scene chewy bit, I thought was really well done. It was earned. It felt like a great beat shift that maintained enough of the character established in the mark, but also brought through to like the sheer you get to see the villainry, you get to see where it's based, you get to see her whole plot come to pass. I thought that scene on the bridge for me was the best moment.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think for me, it's the two scenes before she drops character, the turbo lift, and then in the medical bay, where she's poking at Spock and telling her fake story. Right, she's sort of Kaiser Sosa, or she's telling the jokers how I got my scar. Right, where especially looking back on it the second time, watching her lying through telling some truth, some not truth. And being like a good therapist, but also an untrustworthy one. I just thought her performance was really excellent from top to end.
I agree.
And the writing and as much as I didn't like the writing of the pirate stuff, the writing of the Captain Angel character I thought was terrific. Because it was somebody, actually for the exact same reason I like the writing of Captain Angel, I disliked the writing of the pirates, because for Angel they were writing a character at the highest level of their ability, right? It was writing a smart character doing smart things, right, and operating well, and then will it succeed or not? It's not like you're putting in an Achilles heel or whatever and nerfing a character. She's not nerfed. Whereas the pirates were written dumb, and they were written nerfed. They were written like a 10-year-old could figure out how to get away from those pirates. And so for the same reason I disliked them, I liked her. So that is my best moment. We have only one thing to do, Mike. Let's throw out some symbols.
Hell yeah, they are self-sealing. Here are some symbols for you.
Okay, Michael, take it away.
So this one's tough for me, Keith, because I guess it's pretty, in some respects, it's pretty middling. I don't have any negative real feelings towards it. I think you are a little more down on that B plot than I. But it does. I'm trying to remember. I think it was this show we complained about this before. It saves sort of its mic drop moment for the end. And in an episode, in a series that is priding itself, I think, so much on being episodic, we talked about, they are often leaving the good bits for the very end or teasing it forward, which is, I sort of want my whole meal. If we're going to go with the food theme, Captain Pike would impress. I don't want to wait for dessert next time, right? If the whole point is come to my pop-up restaurant, well, maybe it won't be here next week. So I wanted all the goodies now. So because I feel like the tease of who is her husband, who is Spock's half-brother, especially for those of us not in, and I imagine even more so for those who do know, I want to know what all that is about. And the tease of it is cool, but then drop it earlier and let's I don't know. It's the carrot on the stick it bugs me a little bit. I think the Spock plot here is really good. I like it. I think it's really interesting it seems to me when I've seen Spock before, even in the reboot of the movies, which are more fresh in my brain, he's pretty established. He pretty much has his mind made up. Yeah, he has his moments where his human nature kind of upsets the balance, but for the most part, he's a whole. Whereas here, him struggling and being able to be brain teased and such is pretty cool to me. The wrestling with what the balance is, I think, or maybe that's a Spock thing all the time.
Well, it is all the time. However, this younger Spock is way more human and way more emotional than later Spock.
Yeah, and it's cool. I think it's neat.
Yeah.
And I think how the other characters are interplaying with that is really unique. I think I'm not. It's funny. I can't tell if it's my human emotion that is reticent to accept this Chapel Spock plot, or if it just feels. I think I enjoy this is so crazy. I'm about to cross the streams here. I enjoy the Keiko O'Brien relationship so much because it's so grounded and real and shows that within a quote unquote successful relationship, partnership, there's a lot of bullshit. right? And what is that bullshit, and how do we work out together? Because that's kind of what we promised to do. Whereas here, it feels like some of these plots are a little more CW. Not that they're not real. It's just the drama of it feels a little bit like. I mean, they've already in 5 episodes shown some really great growing and bonding stuff with T'Pring and Spock. Yeah. Especially last episode. I thought that stuff was great. Or the Freaky Friday, whenever that was.
Yeah.
And then now we're like, it almost pushes you to kind of want to root for Chapel, and you're like, well, I don't want to be in the face of ruining Spock's. I don't know. I'm just coming from a very unique, specific place about it. That's all to say, I'm not interested in it. It's not interesting to me. I think what I think
you're
is
like me in the practice.
Yeah, right. But what I think is interesting, less so than I think what I'm not, if I'm being frank, I'm not interested in her emotions in this. Like the friend zone of it all. She's very attractive. She's very capable. She's clearly sleeping around. She's got bunch, like she's just looking for somebody. And this one's taken. It is what it is, right? Whereas him, I'm curious. Where does he stand on this? Where does T'Pring? Is she know that he like where that ambiguity is interesting? If maybe a little off-putting to me because I just want him and her to be happy. So that's what it is. And it is important to the plot. Although I would say maybe even in the wormhole universe, if T'Pring is in on it, if she gets what the ruse is, then why does Spock have to bring it to that point? Why couldn't he just on his word? The ruse of the making out was for the baddie, but that wasn't necessary in any way, shape, or form.
Well, but I think they had to sell it to her because they had to sell that T'Pring really didn't care.
Okay, well then
she had lost her leverage with T'Pring.
Then make that mean that. Otherwise, because we still have a Deus Machina ending. So Spock needing to do this kiss should have impact. But regardless, whether they did it or not, Pike was coming in the ship to save them anyway.
Well, that is also that part of it is true. Like that ends up not being important.
It makes it about the kiss.
To the story.
It makes it about the kiss instead of about the.
It
needed to happen.
Yes.
So
it's about the emotional stakes, not about the practical stakes.
So once again, I feel like a broken record. We say this a lot. There's elements that are really working. It's just they don't all work together all the time, right? There are bits that work there, and that's the thing that this series thus far has lacked is a bit of cohesion. A lot of some great stuff, or a lot of excitement, a lot of stuff that has worked, but they're not all being cohesive all the time, which is where I hope we can get to. And there's the pirate thing, which it almost feels like the goofiness of it. They were like, let's have fun with it because it's ultimately going to be a MacGuffin to a Deus Machina because Pike's got to save the day at the last second before the shoot. And then, it's very an episode of, it ends up being very Inspector Gadget, where you got Gadget in trouble and stuff's happening, and then you got Penny who like magoos her way into fixing it, and then Dr. Claw's like, I'll get you, Gadget, and your little dog too. And he slams his fist and goes off, right? That analogy wasn't that bad, actually. So it's goofy, yes. The bigger problem is that I had with it, than its goofiness, is that I get it. I get who Pike is, and I'm learning a lot about it, but he's yet to be put into a situation where I feel like he is playing actual life or death stakes. Even in the couple of life or death plots we've had. Like, this is a great example. It's like you and a huge portion of your crew have been taken prisoner, and he behaves the whole time as if he's 1,000% confident that his plan is going to work and they're going to escape. Like,
it's all a joke.
There's he's quiplash the whole time. There is no seriousness to our peril here. Now, if they had scenes where he's so confident in Spock, he's talking to Spock and he knows Spock's going to do his bit and but that's not part of it. That is not what's happening here. It's just
it's a little bit of a throwback to Shatner. Like the original series, like Shatner never he was always nonplussed, right? He never really played the real stakes of the peril that he was in. And so it is a little bit of that. I
Okay. Well, and you could also sell me on if he was a little more broody. And well, I know this is not Pike, so I'm not. But if he were broody because he's like, I know I'm going to die, and so nothing fucking matters.
Right.
That's a take. So anyway, it doesn't always jive. They haven't. Only one episode for Keith and I has found the Goofy correctly.
Successful Goofy.
Yes.
Well, it's hard.
Yeah.
Sci-fi
100%.
Goofy is hard.
So that knocks it a little bit. But that all said, it's still a pretty fun ride. Good bad guy, cool little flip, cool little ruse. I kind of even liked. I thought the Space Pirates was kind of there was some fun there with them more so than the cooking thing was weird. I will say I did find it a little weird. Ultimately, it's like it's better than a meh. It's not a yeah. It's like a huh. So in numbers, Keith, I think that's 78 self-sealing stats.
It's like, what does that end up as a number? Yeah, it's interesting for someone who I guess it seems like I've criticized it a lot because of the pirates and the sort of tonal inconsistencies, which you just laid out. I don't necessarily need to lay into them again. But suffice to say, I agree. It bumped me. It didn't feel just tonally right. I just change it to slightly less jaunty, and I think it would have worked much better. That said,
and didn't we just watch a Deep Space Nine episode where they talked about O'Brien singing sea shanties?
Yes, Louis, yeah. Mm-hmm. All of that aside, I think the whole Angel, what was her other name? Angel Aspen, whatever, character and storyline, I really liked.
Yeah, it was good.
I thought the performance by Jesse James Keitel was really fun and compelling and interesting. The poking at Spock was fun. I'm shocked how much T'Pring Spock we've had this season.
Is T'Pring listed as a guest star each time?
She's a guest star, yeah. But that said, it's had growth and change and development, which I certainly appreciate. So, the reveal of Cybok to me is like, huh? I mean, I was onto it. Like, once Spock said, like, oh, I know who it is, I had a sense, because them introducing the emotional bad guys in Spock Amok, immediately I thought of Cybok. So he was already on my head, in my subconscious. So I was like, oh, that's what's happening here. So I thought that was really interesting. I don't mind that they dropped him at the very end, because we're going to follow up on it, and this is Angel's story.
Yeah.
Right. And I can't wait to have her come back. So, yeah. So I actually enjoyed the episode mainly because of the duet between Angel and Spock, and T'Pring to some extent. The Chapel of it all. I guess I sort of am a little bit more invested in Chapel's feelings there, although I can't. I have to admit that my own personal feelings are intervening there, having spent much of my 20s in the friend zone and having a little bit of a crush on Nurse Chapel. So I'm like a little bit more invested because I identify with the position that they're in.
Yeah, but isn't it more furtive if she's not banging all these other people? Like, does she?
No, I don't think so at all. Because her, like, oh, I don't do relationships, I'm just gonna hop around, belies the truth, which is that she's in love with Spock. So therefore, everything else is just sort of
okay.
Just
Did
whatever.
She just meet him?
No, I think she knew Spock before.
No, because when she's inoculating him in the pilot, she's like, "Aren't you?" or something.
Yeah, but that was her flirting, not "I've never met you before."
Okay, I gotta watch it again. I'm not certain on that.
I think. But whatever, we don't. They've been out for a while.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, like, hey, you ever done summer stock? It doesn't take more than 3 or 4 days before you're madly in love.
Hell,
and,
ain't that the truth?
If the USS Enterprise isn't summer stock, I don't know what it is. So, Yeah.
Here comes company. No, it's more Pirates of the Penzance this week.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, no. So, all of that said, I think it's got some good stuff. It's got some great stuff. But for me, I enjoyed the ride, and for me, that gives you an 85 self-sealing stem bolt.
You liked it more than me?
I did.
Okay.
I liked it more than you.
Okay.
We've been very, very. This is the. Actually, I like the pilot. I like the pilot 10 points more than you did. Other than that, we've been within 3 or 4 points.
It's funny. I feel like Deep Space Nine in the reverse, where I was like, I just feel like this. I feel like what I've heard and what I can feel. I can feel the energies that it's ready to just go, and so I want to leave it the room to go. Can't be throwing out 90s, 85s, 70, you know. Come on.
You gave Spock a muck a 95, you schmuck.
Loved it. Loved it.
Yeah, well, there you go.
You get Goofy right. If you can be funny, then it works for me.
Yeah, funny is good. All right, folks. So thank you so much for watching and/or listening this absolutely chaotic episode.
So much stuff
of
happened,
Strange
guys.
New Show.
So
Keith
much
and Mike
stuff
watch
happened.
Strange New Worlds. While you're here, check out our other shows. Keith and Mike watch Deep Space Nine. Come join if you've enjoyed this at all. Come join us over on Deep Space Nine.
A lot more people watch this than watch that, and that is such a great show. Come on,
Come on.
Come on.
It's super fun. Come on. We're in season 3. It's getting good. It's awesome. You can also look at my Star Trek toys, which we talk about toys, K&M Geekly, where we talk about geek stuff. And you want to go back into the archives and check out Out of Practice and hear us do this for David E. Kelly's The Practice for 8 seasons. It finishes in a musical, guys.
We went from boys to little boys during COVID, very afraid little boys, to crying to what we've become now, which
crotchety old men that we are now.
You think the presidency aged Lincoln? Wait till you see us at the beginning of the Out of Practice.
Podcasting us, yes. Go see our first video podcast. Like, hello, it's Keith and Mike. We're going to talk about stuff. Yeah, okay.
So much weight gained, lost, regained.
Or just gained, in my case. You can join us on Patreon at patreon.com/KNM. All of our socials are there. Next week, we are talking about the Elysian Kingdom. This one, as I've taken a look at where this sits with the IMDb ratings and the screenshots, I can't wait. It's going to be
bonkers.
Something.
Okay.
So, there it is. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you back later next week with another episode of Keith and Mike Watch Strange New Show. Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM.